See this girl? This is the daughter of North Korea's supreme leader, Kim Jong Un. We don't know her birthday or how old she is. We don't even really know her name, unless you count hearsay from Dennis Rodman. But many North Korea watchers, and, more importantly, South Korea's intelligence service, think this teenage girl is the heir apparent to Kim Jong Un. That would make her the next supreme leader of North Korea. Who is she, and why did Kim Jong Un unveil her to the world? And if she is North Korea's crown princess, is the country ready to be ruled by a woman? Anna Fifield is a veteran journalist who's reported from North Korea and wrote the book The Great Successor, The Divinely Perfect Destiny of Brilliant Comrade Kim Jong Un. She sums up why it's an uphill battle to frame this teenager as the next supreme leader.
She is now maybe 13 years old. She is clearly a child. Not only is she a teenager, she's female, which is another black mark against somebody in a patriarchal, hierarchical system like this one. So it would be very, very difficult to think that she would be able to take over. But I said that about Kim Jong Un as well, and they've done it.
Let's rewind to this mysterious girl's first public appearance. On November 18, 2022, North Korea tested an intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM. That in itself was newsworthy. But North Korea has tested ICBMs before. What made this launch unusual was that a preteen girl was in attendance, standing next to her father, North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. She was identified by North Korean state media as the leader's beloved daughter, accompanying her father to inspect the newest missile capable of dropping a nuclear weapon on the United States. How sweet. Ever since, Kim's daughter has appeared at regular intervals, at missile launches, submarine unveilings, and important political meetings. She's clearly important, but other than what she looks like, we know almost nothing about her. North Korea is arguably the world's most closed-off society. There is very, very little public information about the regime and the people involved, including the family of Kim Jong Un. One of the only sources of information is North Korean state media, and it's tightly controlled and tight-lipped. For example, Kim Jong Un's daughter has never once been named by the North Korean press. She's always referred to as some variation of daughter, the beloved daughter, the precious daughter, and more recently, the respected daughter. One of the few sources of outside information we have is probably the most unlikely source imaginable, Dennis Rodman, the former NBA star. Kim Jong Un is a huge basketball fanatic, so much so that he invited the players of the legendary 1990s Chicago Bulls to North Korea to meet him. Rodman was the only one to accept the offer. He traveled to North Korea in February 2013, and there he met Kim's daughter, at the time a baby. This presumably is the same girl now being pictured at military events. The ages roughly match up. A baby born in 2012 would be about 14 years old now, give or take. That appears to match the visual appearance of the beloved daughter. Rodman also provided another key piece of information, the girl's name. According to him, the baby was named Kim Jong-un. Now, we should take this with a grain of salt. How much faith do you have in Dennis Rodman's recollection of a Korean baby's name? There's even some speculation that Rodman heard the baby being talked about as my child, Jae in Korean, and mistook that for her actual name. Regardless, it's the only name we have to go by, so it stuck. We'll be calling her Kim Jong-un in this video just for convenience. But don't be surprised if eventually North Korea announces her name as something completely different. That's just how opaque this society is.
We don't know whether that is actually her name, whether it's the same baby, what the characters for that would be in Korean. So yeah, just shows how little we know about this regime still to this day. I mean, it's interesting that even the South Korean intelligence service didn't know how to spell Kim Jong-un's name until the North Koreans told them by announcing it in the state media. So this just shows how opaque this regime is, that things like the spelling of the leader's name, or in fact the leader's name, remain in doubt until they tell us. There's so little intelligence from North Korea.
And yet, South Korea's intelligence service seems sure that Kim Jong-un is, in fact, the heir apparent to her father. In February 2026, the National Intelligence Service told South Korean lawmakers that Kim Jong-un had been officially designated the chosen successor. The NIS obviously has sources and evidence that aren't publicly available, but many North Korea-focused analysts had come to the same conclusion, just based on when and where Kim Jong-un turned turned up in photos with her father, and how North Korean state media presented her. Since her first appearance, all of Kim Joo-ae's public activities have been meticulously choreographed to signal her status as the potential successor and a symbol of the so-called Paek-2 blood.
The North Korean regime has continued to survive because of this myth that they descended from this kind of quasi-deity from a holy mountain in North Korea, and they have this special blood. The mountain is Paek-2, and they say they've got Paek-2 blood running through their veins. So she, as a blood descendant of this family, would therefore automatically be kind of conferred this legitimacy by the state propaganda machine in a way that no one outside the family could.
As I mentioned earlier, Kim Joo-ae's introduction to the world occurred on November 18, 2022, when she accompanied her father to the test launch of the Hwasong-17 ICBM. Dressed in a white puffer jacket and holding her father's hand, she was identified only as Kim Jong Un's beloved daughter. Her presence immediately reframed the regime's nuclear program as the inheritance Kim Jong Un was passing on to his child, or children. He may have others. Throughout the next year, Kim Joo-ae continued to appear at military events. In February 2023, she took center stage at a massive military parade marking the 75th anniversary of the Korean People's Army. Photos showed her standing among high-ranking generals and seated at the head of a banquet table, a position traditionally reserved for the leader. In November 2023, she was present at the launch of North Korea's first military spy satellite. In 2024, the regime started diversifying Kim Joo-ae's public profile. She began appearing at economic and social events, such as the inauguration of a major greenhouse farm and visits to poultry factories. In 2025, Kim Joo-ae made her first public trip abroad, accompanying her father to Beijing, where he attended China's military parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Kim Joo-ae didn't actually attend the parade or any other public event. Still, it was the first time any child of a North Korean leader had gone on an official foreign visit since her grandfather, Kim Jong-il, accompanied his father on trips in the 1970s and 80s. Notably, Kim Jong-il was much older, around 23, when he started accompanying the supreme leader on diplomatic visits. On November 28, 2025, Kim Joo-ae was seen alongside Kim Jong Un at an air show celebrating the Air Force's 80th anniversary. Top military officials were photographed bowing to her, a significant breach of traditional hierarchy that suggested her authority was becoming formalized. By then, the narrative surrounding Kim Joo-ae was shifting from a beloved daughter to a legitimate political heir. In January 2026, she made a high-profile visit to the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, the mausoleum for her grandfather and great-grandfather. This visit was immensely symbolic, as it visually placed her within the direct lineage of North Korean power. The most defining moment occurred in February 2026 during the Workers' Party Congress. State media reports began using more exalted titles, such as the respected daughter, a term generally reserved for North Korean leadership. Kim Joo-ae was also positioned prominently during the closing parade. South Korea's intelligence agency put all of this together, plus whatever classified intelligence it has available, and concluded that it was highly likely she had been designated the official successor by 2026.
She's been particularly prominent at military events, the launching of missiles, big banquets and parades. She has been there, so he's trying to suggest that she is, being steeped in the military lessons of this regime, this nuclear state. But it's interesting that they have not so far created any kind of myth around her. I mean, it would be a stretch even for North Korea's very creative propagandists to come up with some incredible feats by a 13-year-old. I think that we are going to see them having to chart their own path to create this legend around Kim Joo-ae, and in particular, the idea that a woman could lead North Korea.
Kim Joo-ae is about 14 years old. Her father is only around 40. We don't know his exact birthday or age either. That means Kim Jong Un could rule for decades to come. North Korea's first leader, Kim Il-sung, died at age 82. His son, Kim Jong-il, died at 70. So why is Kim Jong Un positioning his daughter as his successor now, when it means bringing her into the public eye at such a tender age? Remember, Kim Joo-ae was only about 10 when she was first presented to the public. Kim Jong Un may have learned a hard lesson from his own succession story. His father, Kim Jong-il, waited until the last moment to anoint an heir, and Kim Jong-un paid for that. His grip on power got off to a rocky start.
When Kim Jong-il got sick and had a stroke in 2008, none of his children were in the public eye whatsoever, and so he suddenly went into kind of turbocharged mode to try to circulate the idea of his son, Kim Jong-un, taking over from him. It was very rushed. Kim Jong-un suddenly started appearing with his father, taking on more and more roles, but it was very, very shaky, and he was in his mid-20s at the time, had none of this kind of prestige bestowed upon him. So I think that was a very hard sell to put him in place and for him to secure his role as the next leader of North Korea. I think that's really driven his decision to bring his daughter out while she was still like 10 or 11 years old and introduce her in public.
Compare that with the original succession in North Korea, when founding leader Kim Il-sung passed power to his son Kim Jong-il. That process unfolded over decades. Kim Jong-il was already a well-known and respected figure even before he officially took over the reins of power. That may be exactly what Kim Jong-un is trying to do for his beloved daughter. If his own succession was as precarious as it looked from the outside, Kim may be trying to spare his daughter the headache by presenting her as the inevitable heir, presumably decades before she will actually have to take power.
The first leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, spent decades preparing the regime and the population for his son to succeed him. That gave everybody a chance to kind of accept that this was inevitable. Kim Jong-un, in this case, I think that he is trying to prepare this. He is still in his mid-40s, so he may have decades to prepare for this, and I think that's what he's trying to do. The same thing, to circulate the idea that it's inevitable that she would take over and be the fourth generation from this Paektu bloodline to lead North Korea.
And Kim Joo-ae will need every advantage because she faces one hurdle neither her father, her grandfather, nor her great-grandfather had to clear. Kim Joo-ae is a girl. North Korea is not only a dictatorship, it's a patriarchy. The country has never been ruled by a woman, and the regime embraces a rigid gender hierarchy in which a woman's role is clearly defined: marry, have children, and raise them to be loyal subjects. But for the Kim family, the ordinary rules don't apply.
The status of women in North Korea has not changed much over the years. It's a very patriarchal society. Women are there to support their husbands and raise the children, still to this day. So the status of an ordinary woman in North Korea is pretty grim. In the case of Kim Joo-ae, I think, yes, she is female, but she is from this royal family, so the idea that she is representative of North Korean women in some way is definitely not true. She is this princess in this regime.
Kim Joo-ae is helped by the fact that there are now a handful of prominent women in the North Korean leadership. The leading example is her aunt, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong. Kim Yo-jong has become her brother's right-hand woman, his propaganda chief and enforcer of loyalty. Kim Yo-jong has even become the regime's main official mouthpiece on inter-Korean affairs, a sign of her prominent position. She's helping get North Koreans used to having a woman as a powerful player, even if not at the very pinnacle of power. Kim Joo-ae's mother, Ri Sol-ju, also plays an interesting role. She is a former singer, famous in North Korea in her own right as a glamorous and aspirational figure. While she has no political function, Ri Sol-ju often appears with her husband at events, showcasing the image of a modern, capable North Korean woman. Even if, like most North Korean propaganda, that image is far divorced from reality, it's still helping set the stage for her daughter to one day ascend to power. And it's not a coincidence that Kim Joo-ae's style, her hair, her clothing, her bearing, has evolved to closely match her mother's. So we have two trends unfolding in parallel. One is Kim Jong-un trying to position his daughter in the public eye, forcing acceptance of her as a respected and beloved figure through repetition. The second is Kim Yo-jong and Ri Sol-ju paving the way for women to play roles, even if lesser roles, in North Korean politics. That could make it easier for Kim Joo-ae to one day take over the top spot, if the all-male military leaders will accept her commands, that is. Both processes could take decades, which might be why Kim Jong-un is laying the groundwork now. But remember, this is all guesswork. Whatever South Korean intelligence says, we still don't know for sure that Kim Jong-un is actually her father's chosen successor. In fact, there are rumors that Kim Jong Un has at least one, maybe two other children, both of whom could be contenders for the throne. For over a decade, there have been rumors that Kim Jong Un's first child was a son, born around 2010. And there are also rumors that he has a third child, sometimes identified as a son, sometimes as a daughter, born in 2017. Neither of these children has ever appeared in public, so we're not even sure they exist. But if Kim Jong-un does have an older brother, that could pose an obstacle for her potentially taking power. Kim Jong-un would know. He wasn't the oldest of his siblings. In fact, he's the youngest son. And he wasn't the first choice of heir either. It's long been rumored that his older half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, was the original choice to succeed their father. But an extremely embarrassing episode in which Kim Jong-nam tried to sneak into Japan, to go to Disneyland of all things, torpedoed his chances. Kim Jong-un eventually took over as supreme leader, and Kim Jong-nam moved abroad in permanent self-exile. But even then, Kim Jong-un was nervous about a potential challenge from his older brother. So much so that Kim Jong-un ordered his brother to be murdered via public assassination at the Kuala Lumpur airport in Malaysia. It's certainly not impossible that Kim Jong-un's grip on power could be challenged by a sibling down the line. We don't know that she has any siblings, though. We didn't know for sure that Kim Jong-un herself existed until North Korea chose to reveal her photo in state media, and we still don't know her name with absolute certainty. If you take only one thing away from this video, it should be this: North Korea tightly controls information, especially about its ruling family, to a truly insane degree.
We don't know anything about an older child or an older son, but so it seems at this stage that it is the daughter who is being groomed, but there's certainly nothing to rule out the idea that another child could be presented to the public at some stage. In this case, there's no human intelligence from North Korea and very little other intelligence. The North Korean leadership is so opaque. We just don't know that much about the family, and we know nothing about their plans.
Thanks for watching The Diplomat Asia. While North Korea is immensely opaque, sometimes its far more open neighbors can still surprise us as well. Check out our video on how the leaders of South Korea and Japan, despite being ideologically mismatched, made the surprising decision to overcome, or at least overlook, deep-rooted issues in the relationship.